Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I am Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by two fantastic co-hosts,
Nate Heininger
and Shane Kelly.
And this week we are punching our way through Fight and Rage. This is a game that I have been wanting to cover on the show for a while, and we just had a lull in the schedule long enough that I was able to suggest it. It was suggested to us by a listener and patron on our Discord, I think more than 3 years ago, and I have been poking at it in little bits for like at least a couple of years. Fight and Rage is a beat 'em up. Love that genre. But I think it's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we played this. This has been a lot of fun. Raygan, I know you've been trying to get us to play like Stellar Blade and a whole lot of other games that you know we filter out of our public Steam lists, and you finally tricked us with this one. So I'm happy to talk through the animations, the graphics, the character designs of this game.
The character designs. Oh boy,
I have to say, I don't want to. I enjoyed my time with this game, but for something that really like you locked in on, Raygan, I kind of don't. I just kind of don't get it. Maybe I need to spend like 2 or 3 more years occasionally opening it on my computer or something.
I mean, we'll talk. We'll talk. But ultimately, like, this game is I think a mechanical, like, absolute top shelf brawler, beat 'em up. And I share some of your reservations about its overall like visual theming. There's some things about it that I really like a lot, and others that I don't like so much. So, but it's a real standout, great fun mechanics brawler. So this is basically a solo dev game. Just worth talking a little bit about the development history here. Not that I'm like an expert on it or anything, but this is basically all the work of a single guy named Sebastian Garcia, under the name of Seba Games Dev. And as far as I know, this is his only game that he's published. He's from Uruguay. I think I pronounced that right. I'm not sure. I always am a little uncertain. Is it?
Listeners, if you know how to pronounce Uruguay, call in and let Raygan know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got it.
Thank goodness. Okay. And this is notable, at least on some things that I was reading of the time of its release, which was a few years ago, as being, at least of the time of that writing, the only Uruguayan game ever released on major consoles, which gave it, I thought, a little bit of an interesting, like,
that's really cool
story. And this is clearly like a passion project from somebody who just really, really loved the beat 'em up genre and some particular games that are like referenced here. But it feels like a little bit of a like almost pastiche or parody of a lot of the sort of things from that genre, while also just putting a lot of effort into being like, I think, a bit of a mechanical advancement on that genre. Like, we've played some other beat 'em ups. This one is more technical and more interesting than any of them, with maybe the exception of Streets of Rage 4, and even there it might be a tie.
It kind of hides it too,
Mm-hmm.
because so I spent a fair amount of time with this game in the last week, and I completed one full run with a character, and then I'm halfway through a second run with the character. And for a lot of it, I was playing the big beefy brawler character too, so I think that played a part.
Big cow guy.
Yeah, Ricardo.
Ricardo. Yeah. So your successful run through was Ricardo?
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I found, for the most part, until the near end of the game, I could kind of just beat 'em up, button mash, etc. And the game seemed really simple as I was getting into it. But the whole time I'm like collecting these coins, and I'm wondering what that's all about. And I beat the game again without really, I would say, without any mastery. Like, I kind of managed to just punch my way through. It gets very hard at the end, but I was still able to just sort of punch my way through. Now on my second playthrough with F. Norris, who's more of a lighter fighter, sort of like, I don't know, the probably like the down the middle character, right? Just like buff dude who punches and kicks. And now I have found that I really have to lean into some of the technical aspects of this game in order to be successful. And it's been considerably more challenging, but it has been kind of satisfying to sort of peel back the layers of the game and start to recognize that there are multiple different paths and lots of different outcomes. I mean, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but when I beat it with Ricardo, I was like, okay, that was fun. Ending B. Okay, new thing unlocked. Ending table. Oh my god, there's like 80 something endings to this game across like,
I know.
with like 9 different characters, and there's a whole shop where you're unlocking lots of other characters and all these different, and the whole game sort of expanded from there and was far deeper than it feels, especially if you pick Ricardo, I think, for your first player.
Part of the reason that I fell in love with this game is that I started with Gal, and Gal is, I think, sort of the default character, and she's by far the most mechanically interesting, I think.
See, maybe that was my mistake. I knew you were playing Gal, and so I didn't touch Gal, and I started with Ricardo, and then I went over to F. Norris. So maybe I should double back and try Gal some more.
I think so. Honestly, I would recommend from what I've played. I'd say that, and no shade on the Ricardo stands here. Ricardo is the easier character to play. He is a analog of like Hagar from Final Fight. This game is like really. We can talk about some of the references and vibes here and so on, but like this game is very specifically in the lineage of the Final Fight games. Ricardo is very much a Hagar analog with a very similar moveset. Gal is actually not too similar to any of the characters in Final Fight mechanically. She's more interesting than that, but her name is clearly like a joke on Guy. The main character of Final Fight is Guy. She's Gal.
Okay. Of course, we all got that.
Real jokey names. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, F. Norris. I mean,
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
First initial F rhymes with Chuck. Norris. Yeah.
There's a lot of great names. My favorite was that there's a jaguar that you fight with named Atari. So you're fighting the Atari Jaguar.
Nice. There's also a lot of like all just like, oh no, I'm beating up Tiffany and Sarah and all these just straight names, when a lot of the other stuff is like Electro Cat and whatnot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I got it kind of that you're fighting mutant furries. Okay, I get it. But why are the dominatrixes on the side of the mutant furries? And when you ask one of them, but you're human, she's like, no, I'm in a different category. What?
Yeah. Story wise, I think there's a lot going on here. I think this is
is there? Clearly... I can't tell.
There's certainly a lot going on now. Does it all make sense, or
there's
is
a lot
it
being said?
Or any of that? Yeah, I don't
I think
know.
it's a developer who really cared about his story, but also didn't care if you didn't care about his story, which is, I think, actually a kind of a good place to be.
Yeah, fair.
So this is the plot. Told through very brief, not too talky cutscenes. Thank you. Is that this is the far future. There's been some kind of apocalypse. If you read some of the lore stuff, there was the big pulse, some kind of thing that knocked out all technology across the world. And simultaneous with that, mutant animals rose and enslaved humanity. And the game begins with you escaping, I think, from a kind of warehouse where a bunch of humans are being enslaved by the animal, though the world is governed by the law of the jungle, and there's a boss, a lion, who's overseeing the mutant animal army. So the your trying to fight back against these mutants. And there's a lot of different like branching paths. For example, like at the very beginning, you can decide like, do I go to the right or do I go to the left? And you get a whole different branching story that basically changes the first half of the game right there. Like there's lots of different branching options. So the actual like moment to moment of the story might be different depending on certain choices that you make. But big picture, it's a belt scrolling action game. You are moving left to right towards the boss. Done deal.
Yeah. There's a lot of really fun dialogue though. Like you're right, it's all very quick. You can engage in it as much as you want. It's
There's
pretty
a fast forward button
incomprehensible.
on it, thankfully.
Yeah, there is a
For
fast
people who
forward
don't
button.
care.
That you can do over the cutscenes too. But I liked some of the
Mm-hmm.
cutscenes, which we can talk about later. But I love some of the very simple dialogue. Like you walk into a room and he goes, "What the hell? This place smells like human corpses." Just like straight and to the point. I love it. I love it. There is a there is a like a degree of a cinematography effort at this game, right? It's not, it is a left right scroller, and for the most part it is exactly what you are expecting in that. But the way some of the scenes open up, the camera panning across the room showing the rows and rows of bad guys you're about to fight, like there is an attempt, I think, to create a vibe like those like old martial arts films too, you know, where you've got the hero on one side and you've got the row of enemies that are just going to make their way one by one at you, and you beat them up one by one. I mean, there are even some scenes where it's basically exactly that. There's a big pile of enemies and they all come out one at a time and you beat them up, and another one comes out and you beat them up, another one comes up and you beat them up, and so on and so forth. And I feel like I hadn't seen that as much in some of the beat 'em ups that we've played, where, you know, you are just going left to right, beating up everything in your path.
Yeah, you're kind of wandering through a crowd in most of these games. Compared to the other ones, also, this one has, um, I mean, we've talked a little bit about the visual style. It's got a lot of like sort of 3D backgrounds, and that's something I don't see a lot in that genre. And
A
then
lot
on
of
top of that,
parallax, yeah.
yeah, but not just parallax, like actual like 3D buildings and stuff that were, pretty basic. But
Yeah.
Is now the time for the Raygan's retro?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I was gonna
This episode is
say,
primed for a Reagan's retro corner. I've just been waiting to ask Reagan.
I
If this
did when we got
is-
started on this episode say, I need to get an early night. We can't make this too long of an episode, so I think we should just sign off here, and then Reagan can tell everyone what he thinks about the CRT filter that's applied to this game by default.
Yeah, Reagan, I have to ask you: does the corners of the screen being rounded and giving that sort of, you know, curved lens effect on the screen, how does that fit into your?
Here's what I
does that
think
increase your
Reagan is
bona
going to say.
fides, or is this bad?
I think Reagan's going to like this. I think he's going to say that this has a very realistic, vibey CRT aesthetic to it. Prove me wrong, Reagan. What do you think?
Well, no,
It's
I
a
think
bit
we
of a
should
mixed
continue.
bag.
We should continue to talk about what we think Reagan is going to say before we let him get to that point.
So I appreciate that this is very customizable, but it defaults to an extremely opinionated CRT emulation vibe.
All CRT emulations are political.
So this is a game that like it has a lot of different visual influences, but visually I think this is really, really going for Neo Geo. So it's got big sprites, lots of animations. You can really tell that they're going for Neo Geo because there is a boot up animation where it does like a RAM check and has like a title card that shows like a product SKU number, just like a booting up Neo Geo does, even though the SKU number is, I'm sure, nonsense. So like clearly visually this is going for Neo Geo. The sprites also have a kind of a Neo Geo vibe to me. I love the sprite work. It looks great. I think the sprites themselves look really good. The animations on them are good. They've done a great job of like sticking religiously to pixel grids, which is, also my religion. So I really appreciate that aspect of it. They've also defaulted on a really crushed, weird CRT filter that, in my opinion, is a little too much. So it's got extreme CRT curvature to the point where it's a little much, man. I think it's a little much, especially if it's going for looking like a Neo Geo cabinet. Man, those CRTs weren't that bubbly. There is a little much. Also, like, really pushes hard on the, like, I'm not sure what you call this exactly, but like, it has it has multiple levels of HDR that you can turn on in this. But whatever the default is on, at least on the Steam Deck, it's really crushing the blacks and really kind of like washing out some of the lighter colors. And it's way too high contrast, I think, for my tastes. I had to go in and tune some of that CRT emulation stuff a little bit down. I still like having that as an option, and I didn't turn it off entirely, but I think it goes a little hard. Tries a little too hard for my tastes there.
To be fair, you could
You're full
argue
of surprises,
basically about everything in this game goes a little hard.
Mm.
So
It goes a little hard.
It is kind of like how maybe you might remember these things looking when you know, remember that it had a really nice curved CRT tube, but maybe you haven't played with one in a long time. So
the curves are definitely Raygan's favorite part of this game.
Oh God. So can I say that is the one thing that like made me hesitant to put this on the show, because every time
Game's got some
I
cheesecake.
suggest we play a game that that has characters that have boob physics, I am mercilessly mocked on this platform.
That was why I brought the Stellar Blade thing at the very top too, which I don't know if you've seen all the controversy about that game, but yeah, this is what I mean. Raygan finally tricked us into one of these games. You know, it's disguised as a fighting game, and then you know, of course,
Gal and every other female character in this has boob sprites that are animated independently from the rest of her body sprite. I don't think it's literally doing physics, but it is. Yeah, it's a bit egregious.
The woman is standing still, and there is full up and down animation going on.
Just a perpetual motion machine.
Just perpetually,
yeah. There are a lot of female enemies that, when defeated, somehow manage to land face down, but you can still see both their boobs and their butt. I'm not sure how that works, even just in terms of their skeleton.
That is, of course,
Mutants,
unless you manage to explode them into all of their bones, which is a very satisfying way to end a combo.
That was fun the first time I saw that.
So I think the way it works, Raygan, you might have figured out a little bit more, is that the standard combo ends with kind of a crushing blow, and if you can time it where the crushing blow gets exactly to 0 HP, they just burst into bones, and you get a little bit of a score bonus, which plays a part later.
I think maybe it's different for Ricardo. I think it is if you overkill them, basically. So if you have if they get to 0 HP before your combo ends, you can continue your combo sometimes indefinitely. There's some really amazing things you can do in this game to just continue a combo into the 20, 30, 40 hit range. And so if you overkill them, and it might be by a certain amount of HP, I don't know exactly, but then you get the bone explosion. I love
it's probably the same for both. I never really like focused on figuring out what it was, because for the most part you're just punching and punching and punching.
It's just fun.
No more bad guys. But I managed with F. Norris because of his super ability. I think my highest combo was like 78 or something like that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about the mechanics a little bit, because, you know, we talked, this is a beat 'em up. So the basics are all there. It's about crowd control. It's about spacing. It's about trying to make sure that, you know, like doing grabs, coming at people from above or below in the sort of, you know, fake 3D of your sort of belt zone of the stage. But I'm going to talk about Gal here, because again, I think she's the most mechanically interesting, but also she's sort of the default character. So ton of mechanics, tons of moves, almost fighting game level amount of moves that are available for you here. So first of all, there's 3 buttons. You've got an attack button that is like a punch kick. If you just keep hitting it, you will do a 4-move combo. There's a second button that is a jump, and a third button that is like a special move, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But tons of variety of things that you can do by combining those. So for example, with Gal, she's got the 4-hit combo that you can do, but you can also jump into that in actually a couple of different ways. So for example, you can do a jump kick, or you can do a jump kick while holding down and you get slightly different hitboxes. You've got multiple different throws that you can do depending on where you are in a combo. When you grab somebody, if you if you just grab them from a standing position, you can do like a hard knee attack where you jump into somebody, and it's a little different from a jump kick. You can combo straight into that, which is amazing. She's got an uppercut. You press down, up, and then attack, and she does a kind of an uppercut kick flip that is super, super useful. There's several different aerial moves that you can do, things that you can do off of a wall, things that you can do when bouncing off of the top of a character's head, other stuff like that. And then there's the special attacks. Every character has slightly different special attacks, and they're situational as well. So for example, with Gal, if you just jump up in the air and you hit the special button, you do a kind of a ground pound electric attack that zaps people on both sides of you. If you're standing still and you do it, you do a roundhouse kick that kicks everybody away from you, is great for sort of clearing some space if you're surrounded. But it also has a kind of a walk up version where if you're walking towards a character and you do the special, you do a kind of a somersault kick. And that is by far the most important move, at least for where I was playing, because you can do that at any time and it will help you continue a combo. So if you do like a 4-hit combo on somebody and they are blasting away from you, you've just 4-hit comboed them and they're on their way to the ground, you can just hit that special button and you'll do that action, and then you basically get another free combo on them. And really the game is about kind of crowd control and also trying to execute these combos of as long as you can possibly do. And it has a combo counter on screen. So if you are, and I forgot to mention probably the key, most important thing, which is, this is my favorite mechanic in the game, the throws that you can do when you end a combo. So if you end a combo normally, the person just falls. But if you end a combo while holding up, you will throw the person that you've comboed forward, hitting the people behind them. And if you end the combo while holding down, you will throw the person backwards, hitting the people behind you, which is an amazing crowd control mechanic. And you basically are like, at least with the way I played the game, I was doing that essentially every time I finished a combo, because every time you finish a combo, you are not just finishing a combo and beating up that person, you're then using them as a projectile to open up space for you to get a little bit of free space or continue your combo on the next person. It's so mechanically interesting. I think
forget to talk about the SP meter. I don't think you.
Yes, I didn't talk about the SP meter. Yeah, you. So all the special attacks, like the lightning stomp that I mentioned, for example, they have an SP meter on screen that ticks up gradually. You don't refill it by doing damage like you might in some other games. It's just a timer. It's about 10 seconds to refill it, but that can be an eternity if you're in the middle of the shit. But you can still do a special attack at any time, even if you don't have the SP. It just uses health instead, which can be really addictive and really bad for your gameplay if you use it carelessly. Sometimes I would just be, I'm in the middle of an amazing combo, and I'm just gonna burn some health in order to see if I can finish this combo out. That kind of thing. Just awesome stuff.
Yeah, so Ricardo and F. Norris, the standard moveset is pretty much the same as you described it with Gal. Just like with Ricardo, everything's much bigger and much slower, but it's essentially the same stuff. And then with F. Norris, I assume it's slower than Gal, but faster than Ricardo, and essentially the same stuff. The specials are very different, but do serve a similar purpose. Like Ricardo, it was the most useful move by a long shot, as he basically does like a big whirlwind attack, which knocks everyone away from him and does a lot of damage. And like you've said a couple times now, crowd control is really, I think, like the technique of this game, because you're right that it is mechanically interesting, but that's not a ton of stuff going on, right? It's not like like a Street Fighter thing where you're mastering like 8 different attacks and all these different combos. Like you're really just trying to perfectly execute the same couple sets of combos. And the thing that complicates it all is that you might be fighting 10, 12 dudes on the screen at the same time. And there'll be a blend of some that attack one way and others that attack another way, and some that can block everything you're doing, some that are aerial. It's really not a one size fits all sort of thing. And I did the same thing as you. Basically, every attack ended with me throwing the enemy in one direction or another. Because one choice that I love that they made in this game is that the enemies don't share the same hitbox, so you can throw one into the other, and they'll both fall down, or they hit each other. So there are some fights where there's some really big Ricardo sized enemies that you're fighting, and they're in the mix of other like small wolves and cat people and all the you know various furry
The
designs.
flies, my
The
least
flies,
favorite of the
the
game,
flies
the
are the worst.
flies.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Did you go the path where you get there was a really cool level, one of my favorites, where you're on a raft
Yes.
and it's basically sitting still, and it's the background so you're going through a tunnel, but it's the background that's moving. Does that make
Mhm.
Did I describe that in a way that makes sense?
I think
Um
so.
and there's water on each side. It was a really fun fight because all you had to do was land a throw, and you're going to throw them in the water, and they're gone.
Mhm.
But you could also be thrown in the water. But then, of course, they mix it up by bringing in a lot of aerial stuff. And I lost that level a couple times because I just wasn't getting the timing down, because you had to jump kick everything. And if you messed up a jump kick, you had a good chance of jump kicking yourself right into the water.
Straight into the water, and you
Yeah,
lose a
so
huge chunk of your health
it's
by
a
falling in the
huge
water.
chunk. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and, in case we didn't say it earlier, like, you generally this game is really, really good about continues,
Yeah.
but it is not, like, a total freebie. So, unlike, like, your average quarter eater from back in the day, if you run out of health here in this game, you have 3 continues, like, 3 lives, basically, and, if you run out of lives, you can do unlimited continues. You can just hit start, and it will jump you back in, but crucially, it doesn't start you back where you were as things already were on the level. So like, you could just feed quarters into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the arcade game all day, and eventually you would win.
Yeah.
This one, it will set you back not to the beginning of the level, but to the beginning of the room, or whatever you want to call those like stages.
Mhm.
And very often I was like, it's still really a challenge, especially on the higher levels of difficulty and with the more complex characters. It's like, can I make it through that entire, for example, raft fight, which culminates in a boss fight on 3 lives? Because if you can't do
Yeah.
it on 3 lives, you can't progress.
This is something that I really liked about the game, because it makes the game 1,000% more approachable, and it also gives you that, I think, a really nice kind of arcadey feel.
Mhm.
This game, it's I mean, we've talked a lot about different things we like about it mechanically. I was coming at it from a kind of a brain dead approach. Really just not exactly button mashing. I've played games of this type before, but um, I didn't learn the combos like it sounds like you guys did. Maybe if I had spent enough time with it, I didn't really look anything up about it. I just kind of dove in. And I was approaching the game with pretty much just my background knowledge of how do the general mechanics of this genre work, how moving up and down and your spacing, learning the patterns of the different enemies,
Yeah.
um, learning how to, get to different moving targets. And then, but in even just in that, it already kind of distinguishes itself. You're not even without learning the combos, because I don't think we've talked that much about it, but the characters are ridiculously fast
Mhm.
for this kind of a game. Like, you can cover the whole screen really quick. I mean, you can't just dash back and forth and keep a combo going, but if the next guy that you need to get to is across the screen, you can just like run and slide like it's a slip and slide, and launch yourself into the next fight.
Mhm.
I'm so used to like Axel in Streets of Rage who is just dog slow. And F. Norris is a race car compared to Axel.
Mhm. Gal too, same thing, and she's very aerial, so, like,
Even
you
Ricardo was pretty damn fast compared.
Mhm. Yeah, he feels slow when all the other characters are way faster than
Mhm.
him, but ultimately, yeah, like, he's not so slow that it
Yeah.
became super frustrating or anything.
And I like I said kind of at the opening of this too, Shane. That's how I approach this game too. And I also still I haven't looked anything up or any of
Mhm.
that. It was only after I'm on
Well, if you
stage.
figured out the throws, you made it farther than me.
Mm.
I'm on stage 6 on F North. There's 10 stages.
Mhm.
There may be you may be able to do it in more or less. I don't know because there are branching paths, but
Mhm.
it's somewhere around 10. And I'm on stage 6 with F Norris, and I've really it's like really started to get really challenging, and I've had to kind of slow down and not just wail on everybody, but actually try to go about it a little more
Mhm.
strategically.
I should also mention something about this that I think I think could be a little more clearly presented, but is a nice quality of life thing here, which is that this has very much it's an arcade mode. You boot it up. It's kind of intended for you to like have multiple playthroughs, multiple runs, start over from the beginning, whatever. But if you quit the game and then you go back in later and you are playing the same character and difficulty, it will pop something up and say, "Hey, you have a suspended game of this same character and difficulty. Do you want to continue?" And it will pop you right back in. So at
That's nice.
first, because there's no like save game system in this, it can look like this is full arcade mode. I have to play the entire thing straight start to finish in one sitting, and you can do that, but you don't absolutely have to. And I definitely, I have a game sitting on that final boss where I'm having a really hard. I played a lot of this game, guys, a lot of it. I've never beaten the final boss because I've only
Mm.
really ever played as Gal, and it's super freaking hard. But I have a game sitting on that final boss with Gal right now, and if I go boot it up, I'll be right back there.
Speaking of things that aren't communicated that well in the game, I could not figure one thing out, and I want to know if you guys understood it. Um, when you get to the end of uh, many of the screens, I think this is related to the timers, which I might just need a general explainer on because it seemed like there was a lot going on with the timers that I was not understanding. But when you get to the end of a level, it would flash on screen in green letters the word demonstration, and then
Demonstration,
nothing would
yeah.
happen for
I
a
don't
couple of seconds, and then the level would end.
That's a
my
retro thing. I'm not sure what game that's sort of referring to, but that's a old school way of
What's
basically
being
telling you that
demonstrated?
it's a cutscene. Like I'm pretty sure, for example, it does exactly that in some of the old Capcom arcade brawlers, like Alien versus Predator, for example. Is it'll say demonstration anytime it takes character control away from you.
Okay, but there's also it does it in this game a ton where nothing happens. It's just the
Yeah,
level ends. It says demonstration. I thought because I also had no idea what was going on, Shane. I at least several times I thought, oh, there must be like a wacky thing I can do right now, like a demonstrate my
That's what I
prowess or
thought.
something.
I was mashing buttons. I was like, "Is there
Yeah,
like a
yeah, like I'm gonna do
fatality that I can
a cool flip
combo
or
in here?"
something. Yeah,
as far as I know, that's just its way of
this
telling
of
you
it.
like
Yeah.
you don't have character control right now. It's essentially
Mm.
a cutscene. Um, but yeah, that is
So
funny because it's such an old school way of doing it.
yeah.
Um,
There was this game does do a lot of quality life stuff that makes it feel very modern despite everything else about it not feeling that way. But there was one tiny quality of life thing that kind of drove me crazy because since this game is the type where you need to get through kind of a period of hell with only 3 lives. I don't know about you guys, but this is exactly how I played with parking garage rally cars, where like you kind of know sometimes a third of the way, or if not even earlier into a run, that you're not going to make it. Right? I got beat up
mhm.
too much too quickly, and there's no restart button, so you just have to get beat up until you die 3 times and then go through the whole continue thing. Would have loved just a quick little restart stage button or
Yeah, I wouldn't
something.
mind that either. Sometimes I found myself just quitting out of the level and opening it back up, and that does
I
the
didn't
same
know what
thing.
was faster, is like
Yeah,
dropping
it
out
wasn't
entirely
necessarily faster.
or just getting smoked. Like on the water level, well, I'll just walk into the water 8 times and be over with it. But like I can't imagine I'm the only one who has felt this, but maybe that's just a desire to keep it retro. So Raygan, if you've never killed the final boss, have you not opened up the shop and all
No,
the
the shop opens up. I
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know exactly when I opened up the shop, but I've like bought
Okay.
alternate characters and costumes and things like that. Also, you have to. This is, I think, a mistake in the design. Um, Not like a bug, but like literally, I think this is a bad design decision. You have to buy access to the tutorial mode. If you want to do, there's like I forget what it's even called. It's like a training mode, I think, where you can go in and do like combo tutorials, and it will like coach you on doing different combos. Very fighting game standard feature, and it ought to just be there, but it's something you have to like buy, and there's like multiple levels of it. So when you do it, you get a little like yellow belt or whatever on the character card
Mm,
when you're choosing the character. So it's kind
okay.
of worth doing if you just want to learn the combos. But yeah, that's locked behind the shop. Lots of stuff is locked behind the shop.
Yeah. Well, so that makes sense because the way I played it, I basically fired it up, went to character select. I'm like, well, Reagan's obviously going to play Gal, so I'll pick the next one that looks the most interesting
Reagan's
and we'll
obviously
How
going to play
how do we
Gal.
both counterpick Reagan's obvious choice of gal?
I mean, come
I
on.
mean, I mean, you
Come
were
on.
correct, so I can't
Yeah,
really
we both
argue.
were.
But
Come on.
come
You
on,
know, you were going to play Gal always. It's
You
not
know.
I mean,
God damn it!
what are we doing here? We both assumed and we're both right.
Hey,
So
what's the
anyway,
I
episode
hate
number
you
on
both.
this one?
we've done
Uh,
400 plus episodes of this show. I think I know your character selection preferences at this point. And it's fine. It's fine. Everyone's got their own thing. But so I picked Ricardo and I didn't beat it in one sitting, but I just played it all the way through, like I
yeah,
never backed out back into the menus or anything. So from my experience, it's like I beat the final boss and then it was like bing, 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 unlocked all this stuff. So there must be there's some sort of, marker along the way that unlocks the shop, or maybe it's like an amount of coins you get or something. I don't know.
maybe I've collected literally thousands of coins at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the coins thing is a little funny. It's like each time you die or lose, depending on I think it's how much damage you did during that run, you collect a certain number of coins. There's some kind of multiplication it does.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the coins are just, there for the shop. There's a ton of stuff in the shop. I'm not sure I'm going to spend the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so like I'm really glad that we played this game and I did have a fun time with it. But it certainly, when it unlocked to being like, wow, there's so many characters and all these endings. And I was like, I think I'm probably good on this game. Like, I want to finish my F Norris run and maybe I'll do it again as Gal. But I don't know that I have it in me to just to really go through and play it with like the 8 or 9 characters and all that.
Hmm.
This genre for me is not the kind of genre where I typically go super deep. I think maybe Streets of Rage 4 was probably the exception for me on that.
Mhm.
But this is typically the kind but even with that, like my typical time that I want to play a brawler, I want it to be pretty damn mindless and like tr- grinding in any way or like even a continue system is almost like too much progression for me in one
Yeah.
of these. I
Yeah.
like to just play the first level a billion times so that every time I fire the game up, I feel like, man, I fucking own this. And then I get to that one guy and I'm like, oh, I lock in. And then my play session is over. Like that's where I'm at with this
It's kind of like
whole
Shredder's
genre.
Revenge, right?
Yeah.
Another one we did for this game or
Hmm.
for the show where I mean, that was basically the invert. It's just, you're just hitting smash over and over and
Yeah.
over and just sort of
That
walk
is
your
a
way through
good
it.
game, but it's like this is like
Yeah.
night and day in terms of
Yeah.
mechanics. It's like so much more interesting.
I really want to check out this new one that is the Power Rangers one. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, I heard some pretty mediocre reviews,
Okay,
so
well, I still
that's
want to check it out because I
Yeah.
love Power Rangers.
I love Power
But,
Rangers too.
I had the
I
Power Rangers Sega game, the Power Ranger fighting Sega game that was like a,
Mhm.
a Street Fighter
Yes.
ripoff or whatever. I loved that game when I was a kid.
Mhm. I played the absolute hell out of the Power Rangers game for the Sega Game Gear, which would alternate between beat 'em up stages where you'd like kill putties or whatnot, and then there would be like fighting game style stages where you played as the Zords, and it was like the world's worst 2-button fighting game of all time. Um, but I played a lot of that game, man, because it's what we had.
Yeah.
So what else is there to say about Fight and Rage before we move on?
The music is kind of exactly what you would expect
Mhm.
with something like this, right? Lots of
I
shredding
don't
guitars.
I think what surprised me is that it is shredding guitars. It's not synthesized guitars. I mean, it might be, but it's not like bleeps and bloops. It's not a like let's lean on the arcade music of the 90s kind of vibe here. It is shredding guitars.
I don't know. I guess just the name Fight and Rage and all the character design, I thought like this seems like a shredding guitar game, and sure enough, it was a shredding guitar game.
It sure is. Yeah, it's the name of the audio guy is like one of the first things you see in the title card thing, and it's like it got a little sprite graphic of him shredding a guitar. And he's like the one collaborator that worked on this game. Everything related to the gameplay and graphics was all that one guy, and then the music is the other guy. I think this game kicks ass. I really like it. I think it's probably not for everybody, and I think it's probably easy to just bounce off of it on a visual basis because titties and CRTs. Um, but like, I think people should give this one a try if you enjoy the beat 'em up genre at all. This is like really top shelf in my opinion. I think this is like I said at the beginning, like probably like second place to Streets of Rage 4, or maybe first place depending on how I'm feeling.
This is top shelf in the way that like a top shelf whiskey sometimes kind of tastes real funky. Uh, but once you have acquired that taste, it's all you want to drink. I think you're right on there, Reagan.
Man, I don't even see the pixel boobs. It's all just combos to me now.
Okay, sure.
Okay, one last thing. One last thing. There is a very common enemy in this that I absolutely loved. Uh, he is basically a ripoff of Knife Guy from Streets of Rage 4, and he is a
Uh-huh.
rat, and I love him. He's my
I
baby.
love the knife rats. They're so
Knife
good.
Reds. Yeah.
Yeah, this game has a really great set of enemies. Like I really liked
Mhm.
almost all of them.
Mhm.
And some of
I
them are
like
like
Electro Cat. He was funny.
Electro
yeah.
He's
Cats are
like a
meow,
meow.
I liked
uh,
there's the like rounded looking cat guy who has the long claws and does the spin attack.
those guys. I
Really
think
didn't like
they
the
were.
pigs.
I thought those
No, I
guys
didn't
were
like the pigs either.
badgers,
Mhm.
Reagan.
Oh,
With
were
the
they?
little. I think they were badger coded, and they were my least favorite. I mean, character
Totally
design.
badger coded. Absolutely
I,
badger pilled.
I
Okay.
like. I liked them as a character design, but as an enemy to fight, they were one of my least favorites.
They were like a ref. This is another Neo Geo thing. They were like
Mhm.
100% a riff on a very similar non-animal character from the Samurai Showdown games.
Hmm.
And just he, I don't know. I liked the move set. They were very challenging at first, and then once I figured them out, they were pretty trivial, and that's what you want out of one of those, I think.
Yeah. I think my only last thought is that this game, of course, has a surfing level. You have to go a
Hmm.
particular path to get to it, but you can't have a good side-scrolling beat 'em up without having your guy on a little board flying at incredible speeds, knocking people off of their boards into the water. It's
Hmm.
always satisfying.
Lots of good stuff. Let's see. And one last thing to say is that this is available on practically everything. This came out really right at the tail end of the previous console generation, and it's on Switch, it's on PlayStation 4, it's on Xbox One, and by the transitive properties of the now, the new generationless console world, it's on all of the current consoles as well. You can just download this on all of the shops. Plus, of course, it's on Steam. And so, yeah, you can play this on anything and it will play great on whatever, including all of the CRT stuff. It does the beautiful, nice fuzz on whatever you want to play it on. I would recommend checking this game out. I have not yet had the opportunity to play this multiplayer, but you can play it with up to 3 players, which I think would be an absolute blast. Unfortunately, it does not do online multiplayer. But it might be worth giving it a try with the Steam, play. Steam's fake online multiplayer feature that I'm forgetting the name of. Stream together
Steam
anywhere,
stream, something like that.
whatever.
Yeah, I've been meaning to. This is right in Molly and I's wheelhouse for couch co-op. I just need to get it. I played entirely on Steam Deck, so I need to get it up and find a way to do it. I think I will though. I think it'd be a lot of fun to play together.
Oh, and play this on whatever your favorite controller is with the very best D-pad that you can get. I played a significant chunk of this with the 8BitDo M30 controller, which is like a fake Saturn pad with Bluetooth. And it immediately improved my play, because it has I like the D-pad on the Steam Deck. It's pretty decent, but the one on the M30 is way better for this kind of thing, because it's more sort of the dish-shaped Saturn pad D-pad. This is one of those games where every button press matters, and so play it on whatever is your personal favorite, console gamepad, if you can. All right, let's see. Do we have a little time for what's making us happy, or is this are we saying goodnight?
Let's make it what's making us happy, the lightning round.
Shane, lightning round. What's making you happy this week?
This is going to be very Houston specific, but I have a friend who has, for the past 4 years, since 2020, done notes on every city council meeting for the city and published them online. And thanks to her, I was clued in and watching a press release from our local mayor, and got to watch as he announced that many thousands of pounds of marijuana in the HPD lockup had been eaten by rats. And it was the funniest press conference that I have seen in a long time. The weed rats. Oh, they're also on shrooms. They were discussing just how hard the process of cleaning this place out was. It's going to affect the cases.
This feels like the origin story of a Fight and Rage style beat 'em up. You're gonna have to go.
It is literally the rat enemy that that has brought this to the front of my mind. But it has been making me laugh literally all week.
That is rat solidarity there, man. Thank you, rats, and also you're welcome, rats. That's awesome.
The HPD weed rats.
I mean, I my thankfully not making me unhappy is that I had jury duty on Monday and I did not get picked. I was very close to getting picked to be on a jury for a driving while intoxicated case, and I was very pleased to not get kicked because it would have upended my entire life for this week. So,
don't you now more than ever feel engaged and ready to participate in your civic duty?
I mean, Raygan? Honestly, if I didn't have to pick up my kid from the bus stop, then sure, man, whatever. But that's where I'm at. I can't be spending all day for 3 days. Did you know court here starts at 1 p.m. and goes until question marks? I don't know if that's
strange.
Yeah, that's very strange.
I have insane luck or bad luck with jury duty here in St. Louis, I have been summoned for jury duty, I think somewhere around 11 times in the last like 10, 15 years. I get it. What
Damn.
feels like quarterly. And I have gone the full ride. I've been the foreman on a murder trial
What?
sorry, on an attempted murder trial.
Wow, I
They,
didn't
they,
know
they were
that,
not,
mate.
they were not successful in the murder. Yeah. I mean, I've put a man in jail,
Uh-huh.
so it's pretty intense. And I learned a lot through the experience, but also I'm like everyone else where it's like, you're just sitting there. I'm not doing the thing where you're like, oh, I think I think everyone should be in prison, or I think all cops should be evaporated or something, so you get out of jury duty like some people pretend that they would do if they're in that
Mhm.
scenario. But I certainly never
I
want
don't
to
think
get
it's
picked.
fair that I would be put on a jury because I can read minds.
Yeah, yeah.
The number one question that the state was asking the jurors when they were, going through our pool was, if could you convict someone of driving while intoxicated in the absence of any scientific or physical evidence? Like,
It's a good
would you
question.
will
It's a
you
good,
just take our word for it that this person was driving
yeah.
while intoxicated? Um, that's actually a tricky question for me to answer, frankly. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know
Yeah.
how trustworthy are these cops. But yeah, that. I'm just super glad that I'm here with you tonight and not there, which is what I'd probably be doing right now. And I guess, Nate, what's making you happy?
Well,
Lightning
I am
round.
happy that I have finally finished watching Star Trek Discovery. I am happy that I am done watching it. I'm not happy
You're
that I'm not
free.
happy that I have watched it. Although it did become something that Molly and I watched together in a sort of uh have fun watching bad melodramatic TV sort of way. But I march on in my now like 7-year long effort to watch all of the Star Trek. And now that we have finished Discovery, I'm going back to watch the 2 seasons of Star Trek Lower Decks that came
Mm.
out in between me watching uh, Discovery. And Lower Decks may be the opposite of Star Trek Discovery, and that it is enjoyable, it is fun, it's good Star Trek, and I love it. And so season 5 has had some misses, but overall, I think Lower Decks is in my top 5 Star Trek
Oh,
shows. It's really hard to pass, Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and probably the original series. But after that, I think Lower Decks is better than all of the other ones. Star Trek has kind
wow.
of just gotten worse over each series
Yeah.
has been kind of worse than the one before. Lower Decks totally resets that. I hear Strange New Worlds is good. It is a spinoff of Discovery. It did take like the best characters from a single season of Star Trek Discovery, and they've done a whole show out of it. So I can see why it might be good. But I'm just glad to not be watching Discovery anymore.
Well, I'm glad that you're free of that bleak forest
you,
that you were trapped
mhm.
in. So
Someone had to do it. Someone had to
yeah,
watch that show.
someone. Well, listeners,
It
thank you so much for. Oh no, Nate's still talking about
No, I'm
Discovery.
not
Go
gonna.
ahead.
I'm not gonna rant. I started to pull out my little soapbox and get up on top of it to talk about Discovery, but I'll leave it for the Discord. If anyone wants to talk to me about Star Trek Discovery in the Discord, I'd love to, because I know the show is trying so hard. It just misses at every step of the way, but they were trying so hard. They certainly really wanted it to be a very good show.
Oh, that's a shame. That
It
really is a
takes
shame.
a huge number of incredibly talented people working super hard to make a piece of crap.
It's remarkable. I think that they were all having the best time on set all the time. It just wasn't resulting in good TV.
What a shame. Well, listeners, thank
There
you
was
for
a lot of
joining us
hugging
on
on
this.
set. So, there was a lot of hugging on set. I'm certain these people were hugging each other after every single scene. I just go on, Reagan, please.
Listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at shortgame.fm. That's the website with all the links and buttons and other places and stuff. Did you know you can leave reviews for our podcast on many of the platforms on which it appears? We would really love to have you. Another nice thing to know, kind of new, is that we are now doing a full video workflow for this podcast. If you have only ever been an audio only listener, we're now doing video podcasts, and we are on YouTube. So if you search YouTube for The Short Game Podcast, you probably need to add that. Otherwise, you end up with a bunch of stuff about golf, which, fair enough. Then look for us there. Or you can go to shortgame.fm, where we have links to everything.
That one documentary has killed our SEO for the existence of our entire.
Yeah, I knew it existed going in. When I bought the domain, I had to buy the .net because they already had the .com. I did this to myself. I just really liked the name The Short Game as opposed to short video game show or something. So here we are 10 years later. But that's all there, shortgame.fm. Especially if you go there, you can find a link to our Patreon or patreon.com/theshortgame. And that is where you can support the show. All of our supporters gain access to our Discord community, which is where you can bug Nate about his Star Trek opinions. And he will go off for you there if you'd like. But also this is where where people suggest things for the show. This game, again, a suggestion. I went and checked. Sadly, the listener who suggested this game to us is no longer a patron. They waited too long. They they moved on.
See, we mean it though when we say it. When you recommend a game, we pay attention. It might take us 4 years to get to it, but we're writing it down. We got a list.
We do. And honestly, almost everything that we play on the show begins on some level as people talking about it on our Patreon Discord. So that is the best way to talk to us. It's the best way to suggest games for the show. It's the best way to join a conversation about the games that you're enjoying or interested in playing. So we really love to have you. I've been Raygan Kelly,
Nate Heininger,
and Shane Kelly.
And thanks once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.